So in this video, I want to talk to you about what it's like to move to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I'm from Australia. I first moved to Kuala Lumpur in 2014. So almost been here 10 years, in and out. I still travel around the world quite a bit, different businesses and so on, but I always return back to KL as my base. And since I've been here, I've learned a lot of different things about what it's like to live specifically in the city center, and I want to share those with you today. So the first thing is, if you are going to move here, you're going to make a decision. Do you want to be amongst all the action in the city center, right next to the Petronas Towers, the KL Park? Do you want to have everything around you, but you're also going to pay a lot more? Is that something you want, where you also probably won't even need a car? I myself don't even have a car. Or on the other hand, do you want to go more out into the suburbs area where you don't mind having a bit more of a commute and a more quieter life? For me, myself, I value my time very much. So anytime you get stuck in traffic, to me, that's unacceptable. I'm not willing to put up with that. So I decided I wanted to be right amongst the action. Traffic in KL can get pretty bad. I've been out into the further areas, not even that much further, maybe just 20 minutes away when there's no traffic, but you get stuck in traffic. There goes an hour each day. And that's very normal here. A lot of people make that daily commute into the city center, and they're willing to put up with being in traffic for 2 hours a day. I myself, I would rather pay a bit more for the rent and save that time and just be able to walk or just get a grab to work. That's really for me. So if you are working somewhere in the city center, for me, I like to be close to the park because I like to run around the park every couple of days. It's just a great environment. You've got a good running track there. There's a lot of people who usually go there. Great view. You've got the Petronas Towers around you. I really value that aspect of it, having a good place that you can go work out or just go for a walk, whatever you want. I also value shopping a lot, which is surprising because I really don't do a lot of shopping, but I just like to have things around me like restaurants, cafes, and have those options for just when you feel like it. So in the city center, you've got Pavilion, which is really nice. You've got this big outdoor area. It's designed very well. You've got, a lot of good cafes, restaurants, cinema. Pavilion's got some really higher and more luxury kind of shops in it. And then you go to Syria, which is below the Petronas Towers. And that also is enormous. It's got the cinema, it's got everything, restaurants, everything in it. And I think it's about 6 levels all up. So if you love shopping, if you can be around one of those two or even in the middle, you don't need a car. You literally can walk to either one of them. And there's connecting overhead passes as well, plus also underground tunnels. So you go to the KL Convention Center, for example, you can go under the ground, walk to Syria. And when I first came to KL, I didn't know about all these different tunnels they have. So I'm walking around the streets. There's not that many people that I see in some streets, but then I learned later on, okay, there's many different paths underground to get to these places. As apartments go, what are you going to pay for rent? Well, that really depends on what size we're talking about, but ballpark. Let's say you're a guy like me, you don't have a big family, you're kind of just living alone. You want maybe 1 or 2 bedrooms. Maybe you want to convert that second bedroom to an office. And you want something that's reasonably modern, but you don't need it over the top. A nice view would be pleasant as well. So ballpark, I might say you might pay like 5,500 ringgit per month. So in US dollars, that's going to be about $1,200 per month. So about $300 per week. That's like if you want something that's decent. Now, if you're prepared to go for something older, a little bit more further out, you might be able to get that for closer to 4,000 ringgit, $1,000 a month. So that's it. Now, as far as cost of living, I myself, I don't cook. Again, I'm very much about time. I like to cook every once in a while, but that's extremely rare. So here you've got 2 major apps. You've got Food Panda and you've got Grab. Those are the 2 main that I use anyway. So Grab's what you want to use to get around. Usually, if you land at the airport, they've got two airports here, KLIA 1 and 2. When you land at the airport, you want to get into the city center. Usually it's Grab, and I think they'll charge somewhere around 80, 90 ringgit, which is about $20 US. So very cheap. You got Grab for transport, but also Grab for food. And you go on this Grab app and you've got everything you could ever want. You've got all kinds of different foreign restaurants. I've got a few restaurants that I use just again and again for almost 10 years now. I find something I like and I stick with it. You've got some really good dining here. You've got cheap food, where street food, for example, you can go around Bukit Bintang. There's a street food area there. It's quite famous. And you go there and you can sit outside, and it's not exactly luxury dining, but it's cheap and it's really good. You can try things like durian, which they call the king of fruits. You either love it or you hate it. I love it. I have it quite often, but a lot of foreigners really don't. So you got good food there. Down the main street of Bukit Bintang, there's a lot of bars, restaurants. So Friday, Saturday night, it's pretty full. It's a very lively kind of place. And that's not far walking from Pavilion as well. So if you were to live around that area, you can get by without owning a car. I really think you do not need a car if you choose the right area in KL. And Grab is cheap as well to get around. It's really quite cheap. As far as banking goes, they are changing things. So when I first came here, I got something called the MMH2, Malaysia My Second Home pass, and it gave like 10 years where you could live here. And to get a bank account really wasn't that hard. I didn't have a worker permit. Okay, I didn't have any permit, but I was able to walk into these different banks and get a personal account. Now it's a lot more difficult. So now if you try and walk into a bank and get a personal account, you usually won't be able to do it without having like a worker's permit or a visa to show why you're here and what are you doing, what are you working as. You can still do it, okay? There are ways that you can still do it, and if you go into the right branch and speak to the right person, the right teller, then it can be done. And I've tried over these last 9 years, different times at different stages. And what I've discovered is that sometimes you just get lucky. You go into the right branch, you speak to the right person, and they let it through. But it is a lot harder now than it was, say, 9 years ago. Now, if you want to set up a business here, that's easy. It's not that expensive either. You find a company secretary formation, one of those services, and they'll set you up for ballpark, I'd say about 800, 1,000 US, something like that. And there are ways that you can then get your worker's permit. So for example, one of the ways is you've got to have at least 500,000 ringgit of paid up capital, so you can bring that into your account. We're talking about right now with the exchange rates, about 125,000 US, and you just hold it there for a period of time. It doesn't have to be that long as far as I know. And you're able to get a worker's permit that way. So you can set up a company here. As far as hiring people here, I will say there's a lot of holidays that you have to really take into account. They have more public holidays here than many countries that I've done business in. So you've got to take that into account. Hiring laws here are quite strict. Certainly not the strictest out of different countries that I've done business in. I would say, for example, Costa Rica is far more difficult to hire people as far as all the laws that they have. But I think Malaysia in general encourages foreigners to come and set up a business here and hire. I think they're very receptive to it. And most people here speak English. So you walk around and you can get by with just English. You certainly don't need to speak another language to get by for everyday living. When I first came here, I packed my suitcases, I landed, stayed at a hotel for a week, and that was the first thing. I wanted to know if I was to live here, if I was to set up my business here and try and have a new life here, how would I get by? Would I be able to go to the shops, the restaurants, and get by with English? And I was very pleasantly surprised. People are very friendly, and I think it's a good place to live. I really do. Now, as far as getting office space, right now there is an enormous oversupply of office space. So it is cheap compared to 10 years ago. It's very cheap. Right now, there's just way too much. And even with residential, 5 years ago, it was much stronger. So things were a lot more expensive than they are now. Now is actually a pretty good time to get involved if you did want to. So if you want to rent an office, the office you see behind me, we've got here is just 3 separate rooms. This room I'm in right now, a longer room, and then room at the back and a room that way. This office is 2,000 ringgit per month, which is about $500 per month. And it's a simple office, but if you had a staff of say less than 10 people, this would be perfectly adequate. You can get by with that. You could probably find cheaper. And this is in the city center as well. Central location. So that's about what you're looking at. If you just wanted a single office for yourself, you could probably get something for $300 per month or cheaper. And I'm putting everything in US dollars just because I'm used to talking in US dollars. But that's what it is. So it's really not that expensive to get set up here. So if you are thinking about moving to Malaysia, you want some advice on the best way to do it, to get yourself set up, reach out to me. There should be a link somewhere below. Click that. I'll be happy to share with you what I did, my experiences, and also the mistakes I made to help you avoid them. I hope that's been of help, and I will see you in the next video. Speak soon.